Welcome to The Planner's Perspective with Jessie Kara. This is the podcast for wedding planners and couples navigating South Asian weddings and everything that comes with them. Culture, family dynamics, money, design, expectations, and the real conversations no one prepares you for. I'm Jessie Kara, a South Asian wedding planner and educator trusted by couples and families when things get complicated. Here we go beyond timelines and Pinterest boards and talk about what actually happens behind the scenes. If you're a planner stepping into South Asian weddings or a couple who wants to understand the process more deeply, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome back to The Planner's Perspective. I'm Jessie Kara, award-winning South Asian wedding planner and designer. Destination weddings are not complicated because they're far away. They're complicated because they operate inside systems most couples don't see. And today, I want to walk you into that system because if you are considering an all-inclusive resort wedding, Mexico, the Caribbean, anywhere structured like that, I don't want you making a decision based on a brochure and a sunset photo. I want you making it with clarity. Let me tell you about a couple. They were intelligent, strategic, financially responsible, the kind of couple who reads contracts. They had spreadsheets with tabs labeled guest projections, room block estimates, flight trends, even event budget allocations. They had compared 3 resorts. They had sat on Zoom calls. They had asked about what's included. And they truly believed they understood what they were signing. When they walked me through it later, they even said, we didn't want to overcomplicate. We thought we were being smart. On paper, it worked. Room night minimums were achievable. The wedding package was complimentary. The ceremony and reception were included. They would earn additional perks at 100 room nights. It looked efficient, it looked elegant, it looked simple. So they signed. They didn't hire me at first because they felt capable, and really they were capable. But capability does not equal structural literacy. 3 months later, I got the call. It wasn't panic, it was a shift in tone. They said, we just feel like something isn't adding up. That sentence, something isn't adding up, is one I hear often. So I started asking questions. What's the attrition clause if attendance drops below the projected threshold? If guests book outside the assigned link, do those nights count? If you earn extended reception hours through performance tiers, what happens if attendance softens? What is the per person cost after 10 p.m.? Are service charges calculated before or after tax? Which venues carry rental fees regardless of room revenue? Has the property executed a 200-person multi-day South Asian wedding before? Not a fusion ceremony, not a 2-hour event, but a full multi-day high-production cultural wedding. They were quiet. And that silence wasn't ignorance, it was realization. They hadn't asked those questions. Because they didn't know those were the questions that mattered. That's what I want you to understand. Nothing was hidden from them, but nothing was contextualized. All-inclusive resorts are hospitality businesses first. They are occupancy engines. Weddings are layered into that engine. So when you see the word complimentary, what you're really seeing is performance-based incentive. Your wedding is subsidized by your guest room revenue. Room nights unlock tiers. Tiers unlock benefits, and benefits are conditional. The system works beautifully when projections hold. But weddings are emotional ecosystems, and projections are optimistic by nature. Let's talk about what shifts. Flights increase 6 months before the wedding. 2 families decide they can't travel. A cousin books outside the room block to use points. A friend shortens their stay from 4 nights to 2. Your projected 120 guests become 92. Room nights soften, threshold drops, and now you're in a call hearing. Well, technically, since you're below the 100-night tier, I wanted a couple earn extended reception hours based on room performance. They were excited. Like, literally, they were going to get to party till midnight. 3 months later, attendance projections softened. The extended hours disappeared. They could keep them for $25 per guest per hour. They had 200 guests, 2 extra hours, 10,000 USD. And here's what hurt the most. They said, but not everyone would have stayed. It didn't matter. They had already settled the bill. That's the system. Room revenue affects perks. Perks affect cost. Attendance affects everything. And here's something couples rarely factor in. Guest psychology. Destination weddings test relationship. They test paid time off allowances. They test childcare logistics, and they test the budget quietly. You might be emotionally certain 140 guests will attend. Financially, plan for 60 to 75%. Anything above that is a gift, because building your structure on 100% attendance is building on hope, and hope is not a strategy. Now let's move into something even more layered. Cultural capacity. Not every resort that says they do Indian weddings is built for multi-day South Asian weddings. There's a difference between we've hosted a ceremony and we've executed Mehndi, Haldi, Sangeet, Barat, ceremony, reception at scale. Multi-day South Asian weddings require kitchen capacity capable of production volume for consecutive days, power infrastructure that can handle lighting, sound, and production, cultural familiarity with sacred rituals, timeline flexibility, vendor load-in precision, space rotation. I've asked properties how many multi-day Indian weddings they've hosted, and sometimes I don't even need the number. I can tell by how they answer. Experience speaks fluently. Inexperience hesitates. Now let's talk about something couples romanticize: outdoor events. Oceanfront sangeets, sunset ceremonies, open-air receptions. I once worked with a couple who designed their entire sangeet around the ocean. Layered draping, suspended chandeliers, custom dance floor, stage built to frame the horizon. It rained. We moved in stores. Technically, the ballroom fit, but the ceiling was lower. The proportions were compressed. The lighting tone was different. The airflow was different. The energy was definitely different. And here's the critical part. No one had re-engineered the design. The backup wasn't a redesign. It was a relocation. And that is where the difference between coordination and advocacy becomes clear. Every all-inclusive resort includes a wedding coordinator. And I want to clarify something respectfully. A resort coordinator works for the property. Their role is to execute weddings within the resort's structure. They are responsible for ensuring events stay within policy, time blocks, approved vendor lists, and operational guidelines. They may be managing multiple weddings at once. Their priority is protecting the resort system. A planner's role is different. A planner protects you, your budget, your cultural requirements, design integrity, timeline. When weather shifts, when performance thresholds change, when vendor integrations become complicated, when cultural elements push against standard policy, someone needs to advocate for your vision inside that system. That is not the coordinator's job. It's not criticism, it's clarity. And that distinction matters more than most couples realize. At another wedding, we were repurposing aisle florals into reception centerpieces. Guests began pulling roses out of the arrangements to place in their hair. I get the roses look pretty, but we needed them at the reception. The resort team did not intervene. I did. Because protecting execution sometimes looks invisible. Now, here's a layer most couples don't fully appreciate. Many sign resort contracts without ever physically experiencing the property, and I understand why. Traveling to 5 resorts before signing is expensive, time-consuming, logistically heavy, so decisions are made through brochures, Instagram, TikTok, Zoom walkthroughs, drone footage, but you cannot feel scale through a PDF. You cannot evaluate privacy through a marketing angle. You cannot assess ballroom proportion through a camera lens. And you absolutely cannot evaluate food through a menu description. Food matters deeply in South Asian weddings, not just volume. Flavor integrity, spice balance, presentation, execution under scale. Trying menu tiers before signing allows you to evaluate whether the kitchen truly understands your cuisine or whether they are adapting something they are not deeply familiar with. When you physically walk a ceremony lawn at 5 p.m. and feel the wind, when you stand in the indoor backup space and feel the ceiling height, when you taste the food that would be served to your guests, when you walk the Bharat route and assess terrain, you make a different decision. When you see one resort, you fall in love. When you compare side by side, you understand the market. And that distinction changes everything. I was on a call with Nitin from Indian Destination Weddings by Gaba Travel after one of our destination weddings. We kept circling the same pattern. Smart couples, financially capable couples, still blindsided. Not because they didn't care, because they didn't physically experience what they were committing to. And that's what led to the Love Tour Cancun. Not as a sales event, as a structural solution. It's a curated site visit experience designed specifically for large-scale South Asian weddings. You walk multiple properties in one trip. You stand in ceremony spaces. You step inside backup ballrooms. You taste actual menu tiers. You ask direct questions about vendor fees, decibel limits, performance thresholds. You compare side by side. Instead of deciding from your laptop, you decide from experience. And for couples investing significantly, that level of clarity protects both vision and budget. If you attend and mention the planner's perspective, I'll provide my expanded resort evaluation guide and a private 30-minute strategic clarity call after the tour. Not a sales call, a structural review. Because once you've walked the properties, your questions sharpen. Luxury is not about spending more. It's about understanding what you're committing to. Before you sign anything, pause. Are we reacting to aesthetics, or are we evaluating structure? Clarity before commitment prevents incomplete decisions. And if you're listening to this and realizing you don't want to navigate the system alone, if you want someone advocating for your vision inside these resort structures, you can inquire about full-service planning through my website. Destination weddings can be extraordinary, but they require strategy, oversight, and someone protecting your interests at every stage. And that is how you think like a planner. I'll see you in the next episode. If today's episode helped things click or gave you a new perspective, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. This podcast exists to support planners in doing their best work and to help couples feel informed, confident, and prepared as they navigate their very own South Asian wedding. If there's something specific you want me to talk about, an episode idea you'd love to hear, a planning story you want to share, or a question you're sitting with, there's a link in the show notes where you can send it all in. I promise I will read every submission, and many of them will shape future episodes. You can connect with me at www.jessiekara.com or on Instagram at jessiekara. If you're ready to navigate South Asian weddings with intention and confidence, I'll see you there. And if this podcast is supporting you in any way, I would truly appreciate you taking a moment to leave a 5-star review. It helps more planners and couples find these conversations and keep the space growing. Until next time, trust your perspective and plan with clarity.